Welcome to Caribbean Focus, another episode of Caribbean Focus. I am your host, Hermina Marcellin, and joining us today is an Antiguan-born painter, poet,
Mhm.
writer, actor, and playwright, IYABA Ibo Mandingo.
I
IYABA
thought this.
Iyaba studied fine arts at Southern Connecticut State University and today teaches in and around the tri-state area as a master teaching artist. Welcome, Iyaba, to Caribbean Focus.
Welcome. Thank you for having me, sis. I'm looking forward to the chat.
Where do I begin? Where do I
Uh-huh.
begin? Okay, you know what? Let's begin with your visual artistry as a painter.
Okay.
Tell us, how did it all begin?
Well, that's probably the one that comes the easiest of all the disciplines I'm still working at mastering. My grandparents were artisans. You know, grandmother was a seamstress and my grandfather was a tailor. Grandfather, I found out after he passed in 2012, was actually an artist who had to become a tailor because that was the practical thing to do in the 50s, 60s, you know, Caribbean with 7 children and grandchildren that you're taking care of. So I saw it in the way he sculpted men's suits, but I had to wait until after he passed, looking through pictures to find sculptures of elephants and things like that he did in the 40s and the 50s. So it's in my DNA. That's what I've learned. But absolutely being his apprentice and being in his tailor shop and watching like the cloths and the patterns he used, and my grandmother as well. You know, people. I remember women would come to her with a dress from this magazine and a dress from another magazine and tell them they want this top with that bottom, and she would combine those things and then make the patterns for them out of newspaper. So it's something I kind of grew up seeing, the visual component. So by the time I was 6 and 7, I was already getting in trouble with mommy for taking her foil paper and making universes, people and animals and vehicles and all kind of things. So that's always been with me as long as I can remember, the visual component.
The visual component of it.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
always
speaking
been.
about visual components, a lot of your artwork delves into faces. Um, as a young growing up as a young artist, you mentioned that it's in your DNA.
Mm.
Were you able to see these constructions in your everyday objects? Were you able
Yes,
to see that?
yes, yes, yes. You know, in the Caribbean, I don't know about you guys, but in Antigua, when Pygmy had long eyelash, they said they can see Jumbi. And so me and my cousin had very long eyelash when we were younger. And I was always telling mommy I could see the pink panther in fences, you know, the wire fence on them. And it was because it's the diamond design. I could see like the makeup for his nose, and I could literally see that. But mommy would always say, "Boy, come and pull me," because she thought I was going crazy. But yes, since I was a child, I have been able to dissect things and imagine creating them myself using the line. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, I think I could talk about it now as a professional artist there, but then back then to me, it was like the best way to communicate, I think. Especially when I moved here to America and you know, it was so hard fitting in. The minute everybody realized that I could draw, then that was my way in, you know?
Way in.
Yeah.
Amazing. And your way in led you to be included in many groups and individual shows in the United States and internationally. In
Mm-hmm.
2018, the the Grave Marker series was on
Mm-hmm.
exhibition at the African American Museum of Philadelphia as part of a
Mm-hmm.
special exhibit, Arresting Patterns. Share
Mm-hmm.
with us what inspires you, and does this inspiration shape the themes pursued in your artwork?
Well, I think, you know, to go back to the root, definitely being from the Caribbean. And these are the things that I think just sort of subliminally come into my work. I definitely use the color scheme of the Carib, our blues and our oranges and our yellows and our reds and our greens. They sort of naturally come into my work. And since I've noticed that, I absolutely play with those and play those up. But Africa, you know, I've been walking around with these African features all my life, and I went from being ostracized and teased for them to falling in love with them. And so Africa plays this really important role and accentuating our features, the nose and the lips and the things that used to be used to shame us, really accentuating those and putting those in all my paintings is really, really important for me. I remember in college, one of my white colleagues asked me, why am I always painting only Black people? And I reminded him that him and I had just sat through 2 semesters of art history where we saw paintings upon paintings upon paintings, over 1,500 paintings of masters and their works. And I was like, how many Black subjects did you remember seeing? He didn't remember any. I remembered seeing a Black Moor by Rubin, and that was the only thing in over 1,500 paintings. So I told him I'm going to paint as many Black people as possible so that my grandchildren, when they're taking art history, will at least have the opportunity to see art that looks like them and not be bored out of their minds looking at white people all day. So that is sort of the root of it. Lately, it's in the last maybe 15 years or so, getting into African spirituality and understanding that aesthetic has really added, because as I was trained here in America, and so I got to this place where the European understanding, I hit that wall because I'm not from the European place. So Africans don't create art from that place. So going to living in Nigeria for almost 6 months and 5 years ago definitely rearranged my aesthetic, the way I saw it and the way I saw colors and sort of a whole nother approach to visual art. And that now is the thing that I really feel influencing my work the most.
And you speak about the importance of telling our history. Um, and you are doing that in your artwork. Do you have a favorite, I mean, artwork? And why?
Like one specific piece? Well, I've sold a lot of pieces, thank God for that. But there are some pieces I've created that I won't say it, but when somebody asks me for a price, I give them something ridiculous they don't buy it. And I would have to say, one is a slave ship that I painted sort of like from a nightmare, waking up and painting, that I did probably 25 years ago. And another is Thelonious Monk, who is one of my very favorite artists, jazz musician. I realized that I use jazz musicians a lot for their ability to sort of try new things and invent. And so yeah, those two paintings, the slave ship and Monk, those are the two that I wouldn't mind putting in my coffin with me.
Like King Tut. And even right now, you have a painting on display. And for our viewing audience, could you explain to us or describe what we are seeing? And for our listening audience who do not have the opportunity to see, could you tell us what you're painting, what you're working on?
Well, yeah, let me turn for that. This actual piece is panel number 25, I believe. There are going to be 60 panels. It's an ode to the great artist Jacob Lawrence, who painted the story of African Americans' journey from the South here in America to the North, looking for opportunity during the 40s and 50s and 60s. Us African Caribbean people, West Indian people, whatever we call ourselves, we also made that same journey for the same reasons. For example, England enticed us to come to help them rebuild after World War II when London was destroyed. It was called the Windrush ship, and it traveled through all the Caribbean islands, picked up people, including my great aunt, and took them to Europe and here to America, where we were exploited and where we became other than just Caribbean people. So I'm now taking on that challenge of painting our story. It's called Our Journey, and this particular panel is a brother being harassed by two British bobbies in about 58. I'm using historical photographs as my basis, and it's just to tell our stories and really put this thing down so that it's known. And coincidentally, the Windrush generation is back in the news over the last year, actually, because a lot of those people that are now in their 80s and 70s and 80s that are looking for their benefits that were guaranteed when they came in, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, they're being told that there is no record that they are British citizens. And over almost 300 of them have been deported back to their home countries. These are people who have not been home in 50 years and who for the most part came and had been trusting on an agreement that they made with the former colonial master years ago. You know what I mean? So this, I felt it was really important to get that story out. And so this is my attempt. Jacob Lawrence took 2 years. I'm super inspired right now. So I'm thinking that maybe by early next year we should be finished, because we're already past 25 and we started about 3 months ago. So it feels good.
Indeed, and I do not want to reveal your secret portion. Maybe you have some magic going on over there in creating such amazing and historic artwork. But is there a technique that you use that you can share with us?
Mm. Um, well, the technical training comes from studying masters like Jacob Lawrence and Pablo Picasso when I was in school. This is basically what you do when you're going for a painting degree. You study the masters, their technique, their brush technique, the way the way they group the paint, their colors, all these kind of things. And so for a lot of years, what happens is you see them in your work, and the goal is to get to a point where people say, "Hey, IYABA, I saw a painting the other day, and I could tell it was your painting." That to me is, I realize now that I'm getting to that place. But as far as a formula, um, listening, and I don't just mean with your ears, like listening with your entire body, because a lot of times with art, and you're a poet, so it's subtleties that really make the really most poignant point. And so a lot of times it could be just a difference of a shade of color, or with poetry, a choice of word. And so for me, it's really, really important to listen to a piece. So I've been doing a lot more so than, 15, 20 years ago, I would have an idea, whether it's a woman picking cotton, a woman cutting sugarcane, and I would go and paint that. And now a lot of times I sit down in front of the empty canvas, or the idea of a series or a specific painting will come to me, and I paint towards the idea in my head. So I would have to say the formula is listening, and plenty music. I love roots reggae. Like I've been listening to a lot of Midnight, and ganja. Rastaman. So ganja for sure.
you know
You
and
know what I
and
mean?
and, and within that realm, and even delving into a spiritual realm, it's often described as something exquisite, as something
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, as
Mm-hmm.
something fragile. um does that world of spiritualism help paint, or rather create these symbolic moments in your artwork? Is there that spiritual
Absolutely.
connection?
Absolutely. I feel like that's the main component for me. The minute I step into my studio, I feel that I'm at the beginning a ritual, and for me, it's really pulling up um, things that I know my ancestors are sending me, and my job is to record them as clearly and as succinctly as I can. So again, the listening thing, and again with your heart, sometimes more than your physical ear. And so for me, the spiritual connection is absolute, even more so as a performer, because I wasn't trained as an actor. So I don't dramaturgy is something I learned about after I'd already been in it. I depend on the, me sitting there in a silence and asking all those people from my bloodline who I knew were actors and singers and comics to come, let's go play on this stage. And then allowing being free enough to, when I feel my grandmother and her sense of humor, to back up and let her do it. And when I feel my grandfather and his absolute charisma coming, to let him do it. And to me, without the spiritual connection and understanding that we as African people, that's what we did. When you see a lot of those ceremonies, they look pretty, but that's what we're doing. We're channeling. And so I'm completely aware of the fact that I'm just a conduit. And so that's the first thing I do is lock in. And once I lock in and I feel that I feel like I can take off. So yes, spiritual.
Spirituality. Thank you
Yes,
for this
yes, yes.
in-depth explanation. And even with this idea of locking in,
Hmm.
we can shift gears. And you mentioned the poetry aspect. So let's shift gears a little to you
Hmm.
as a poet, writer, actor, and playwright. Your
Okay.
one-man's play Unframed debuted in spring 2017 at the Electra Theater in New York. You were previously seen. Um, well, actually, you've been on 59 East 59th Street Theater
Yes,
as
yes.
Henry, and also played Derek Walcott's,
Similar. Yes,
and I
you know,
believe
you
this
see
is
smile.
where we met.
Yes, yes, yes. You know the side. You see the size of the smile there. I mean, since it was for me, it was all sort of very a very sort of wonderful thing. I'm performing as a poet. You know, this is the shy kid. I remember fainting in my seventh grade class in the speech class. So I never ever contemplated being somebody who stood up in front of people and expressed themselves for a living because totally intimidated by that. But you know, here we are. I begin doing poetry in college. I get into the slam poetry thing. I come out of that into sort of just performing as a poet in New York, in the New York scene. And a woman comes up to me and asks me if I've ever thought about acting. And I sort of backdoor into acting that way. And the process to me was so revealing because you realize that you can disappear like me, IYABA, formerly Kenny, can disappear on the stage and become whatever you like. And that freedom for Black people and for Black men, you really don't find that place other than in your head a lot of times. So to realize that there's this place, physical place where I can go and be everything is 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 awesome. So to have the opportunity to bring a one man play to its zenith, which is off Broadway, because you know a lot of times you don't realize Broadway is it has to do with seat numbers, like the classifications. Broadway is 500 plus seats. Off Broadway is 500 to 250 seats, and off Broadway is 200 and below. And that's basically the criteria they use. So we took our play to the very top place that you could take a one person play, and I got to say that we sold out a lot of nights, and think it was to my Caribbean community. People from the Caribbean came all out, but then that led to Derek. Before that, we did Derek Walcott. My grandfather and his boy, Mr. Marcus, used to read him in the tailor shop. So when the second show, the director comes backstage and says, "I don't want you to get nervous, but Derek Walcott out there in the front row," I was like, why would this man do this to me? So this was like he's like at the top of my list of wowness when it comes to people who put pen to paper. You know what I mean? And I don't know if you know his paintings, but he's also a wonderful painter.
Yes, he is.
So I go, and the first act I do the play, and second act I do the play, and when I'm finished, he's sitting in his wheelchair like the elder that he is, and he goes, come, and I walk over to him, and he goes, boy, you're a little shaky in the first act. But the second act was marvelous. It's the best Jackson Phillips I ever see. And I know why he was nervous. I bet them stupid people come behind there and tell you how outside here sitting down. And I was like, yes, so that's exactly why there's a picture of me and him cracking up laughing. That's what he said. And so to me, to look back at, because you know this, in our world, you can't stop to smell the roses. The job is to just keep going, because if you do, then you risk the opportunity, the chance of becoming stagnant and not continuing to grow as an artist. So I only look back at those things in hindsight and go, wow, I performed Derek Walcott's play in front of Derek Walcott in the front row, and then he gave me accolades afterwards. Now I can sit back and go, but if I had thought about that, I would have fainted. Yes. You know what I mean? So to me, those things, having those things under my belt, they really build the confidence, and I walked out of that performance, that experience saying, I'm an actor. You know what I'm saying? But to me, the art world, to me, I wouldn't say I'm a poet until I felt it, because people I revere, Maya Angelou, you know what I'm saying? Sonia Sanchez is a poet, you know what I'm saying? August Wilson is a playwright. So those kind of people, Zeno Obi is a playwright, you know what I mean? So I feel like I have to earn that title before I can add it to my resume, you know what I'm saying? So that to me it's been like, that's been the process for me.
And you are well on the list. I mean, speaking on poetry, your first collection of poetry, Your Tongue Heavy Lacquer, is that how you say that?
Yeah, that's Rawback Antiguan Patois. I mean, it's for Your Tongue Heavy like a 56.
Oh, like a
yes.
56. Okay, well, yes. I believe we use that colloquial language.
I bet that's it's from it would be from our great grandmother's generation. After slavery, we used to call it shooting hard labor or sharecropping. They used to push the plows to plow the fields for these people who they still had to work for, and each plow had a number stamped on it, that designated the weight and the size of the plow. So the heaviest one had a 56 on it. So when somebody from my great grandmother generation would say, "Yeah, gal, for your tongue heavy like a 56," she was saying that you had a lot of heavy things to say. And I was doing a collection of poems at the time, 27 years of poems, and researching the family for mommy and them. And when I came upon that, I was like, wow, what a perfect title for a book. So that's why that came to be.
And it is actually available on Amazon, and
Yeah.
you get to or to get a copy, actually a signed copy, you can visit the website. Could you tell our listening and viewing audience the website?
It's my name combined with art, so it's IYABAARTS.com. IYABAARTS.com. You go on there and you buy the book. We'll sign it and send it all to you with plenty thank yous.
Thank you
very much. Or you can go and get it on Amazon. But
yes.
It's completely your fault. Yes.
Yes.
Right now. We're working on the new collection, which is called Seasoned Rice. If you're from the Caribbean, you know seasoned rice means wherever left back, put in and make a big pot of rice, one pot rice. So the next season is we're finished with the manuscript and we're just sort of doing some editing right now. So Seasoned Rice.
And, are there any upcoming projects or maybe some recent projects? I believe I saw a recent project posted.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about that and any upcoming projects, and including your clothing brand, Mandingo? Yeah, you're just all over.
You know what? Sis, after all the titles, I call myself a storyteller. And I realized that the gifts that I've been given are just tools and different ways to tell a story. So if I doesn't, sometimes how you struggle with a poem, then I realized maybe I should put it as a painting. And maybe if I'm struggling with it as a painting, maybe it wants to come as a play or a song or, some kind of a design on clothes. So the Mandingo wear is really started. I bought a pair of sneakers real cheap. Mommy used to only afford croquettes, so I had plenty croquettes when we first moved to America. And it had a smudge on the heel, and I painted on it and wore them, and everybody loved it. And that's how it started. Since then, we've gone into glasses and outerwear and this kind of stuff. And it's really just embellishing and realizing that I did learn a lot being my grandfather's apprentice, and I do know how to put clothes together. So really, really starting to lean towards that. All the work is on the website, just like I just mentioned. The books. What else did you tell me to talk about?
Your projects. You had.
Okay. Yes. We just finished. We just finished. Yesterday, we put the finishing touches and signed three. This is our second major public commission. We did one years ago in New Haven. This here is here in Bridgeport for the Beardsley Zoo. We did three 8-foot tall sculptures representing my interpretation of snowmen. So I gave them African snowmen. And I love the project. It came out awesome. They love it. And I'm really, really proud of that. That was awesome. That was a wonderful sort of check off my bucket list, let's call it. Like I said, Seasoned Rice is coming out, and we're right now in the process of hooking up with some of our fellow actors for the first reading of my first written multiple person play in sort of very soft patois, so that everybody can stop saying, we don't understand what y'all are saying. So it's going to be like our patois, but watered down enough so that all the ears can hear it. I'm super proud. It's based on August Wilson's play, The Piano Lesson. It talks about silver bracelets that, mommy and them just wear and get passed down, and the tradition that comes connected to those silver bracelets. I'm super proud of that as well. That's probably the one we're working on the most right now. And I believe I'm all for using this new medium that this pandemic has placed on us, which is a Zoom thing. So the goal is that maybe around Kwanzaa to have an official reading on with Zoom, where we can invite some people to come in and really just kind of hear it. I've had a lot of colleagues read it and they like it. The whole thing right now is to get it, hear the words off the page. You know what I'm saying? So I'm really, really looking forward to that. I'm really psyched about that. You see the size of my smile. I gave it to a wonderful friend of mine, David Edgecombe, who is the playwright from Montserrat, and an elder and a mentor. He has it now in the Caribbean and in St. Thomas, where he teaches at the university. and I'm waiting on his feedback because he's brutally honest. So it's either I'm either going to be smiling or crying, but I know he's going to help me make it better. So yes, that's those are the things. I'm painting this series here, and the Are We Journey series, and I paint. I when I'm painting things like this that has a lot of research, then I have to take like exhales, and so I exhale and do things like this here, which is called it's called the ties that bind.
Hmm.
And those are easy because I can just do like I guess if I compare it, it'd be like free writing. It's just
Abstract.
yes, and just allowing my brain to go, and whereas opposed to this, I have to be, I have to research
Yes.
the British Barbies uniforms and to get all the things right and what the buildings look like. There's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of conscious presence when you're
Yes.
doing these, as opposed to
When,
when I'm doing those, I can kind of go subconscious and
and you just
exhale and
free.
come back to this. Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
Free.
Yes. So to
Yes.
me, that's how I use the different disciplines.
Yes.
I'm writing. I'm writing. I'm editing. I'm editing Season Rice, the new book of poetry. So I'll at some point I get off and teach in a couple of hours, and then I go when I get off teaching, I'll probably go have some lunch, and then I'll go to the book, do some editing there, and then come down here and spend the rest of the night in the studio painting. I love
Amazing.
my life. I
Yes.
love my life. I love it. I love it. I love it. The
And
pandemic has
it's a
been, for me,
creative
it has
life.
been, since the pandemic, I know it's been crazy because, the contact with people and it's been weird adjusting. But for me, I feel like sometimes stopping and stopping is a good thing. So for me, it's been so productive.
Yeah.
So like over 50 major paintings, so productive. A new play. I finished up two plays that I've been lingering and hanging around for a while. Um, so productive. So I'm ready to get back. I'm ready to get back to touring because I miss, the on the stage with the people and that kind of thing. And we were just starting to really kind of catch fire in the Caribbean with the play. We were touring in the Virgin Islands and we were just getting ready to go to Tortola when they cut down everything. So I'm looking forward to starting those things back up. But I've really been enjoying the downtime.
And
Really been enjoying it.
the downtime,
Yes.
spurring up that creativity. Um,
Yes, man.
Indeed. Iyaba, I
Idea.
would like to thank you. Thank you very much for bringing a touch of your creative energy to Caribbean Focus and again being a relevant creative force that is pertinent to our time.
Mhm.
Artists are very important. I always mention we're called the talented 10th, right? And
Mhm.
we're awakening the spirits, we're influencing others, and we too are being influenced. And thank you
Absolutely.
for bringing this creative force
Well,
in
thank you
this
for
room.
having me, sis. I really enjoyed the vibes. I enjoyed. I look forward to seeing you in the physical soon and sharing a stage with you again.
Thank you very much.
All
Thank
right,
you
sis.
again. And let's again, I'd like to thank IYABA. And this has been Caribbean Focus. I am your host, Hermina Marcellin. Thanks for listening and watching. See you soon.
Good night, family. Goodbye, family. See you guys. Love, love. Peace.